First Contact's Folly. Grand Admiral Xerxes stood aboard the bridge of the Dominion's flagship, Eternal Glory, his crystalline exoskeleton gleaming under the ambient light of 1,000 holographic displays. The massive vessel led a fleet of 300 warships, each a testament to the Dominion's 10,000 years of uncontested rule over the galaxy. They had just emerged from quantum space near a previously unexplored spiral arm, following rumors of a species that had achieved faster-than-light travel without following the prescribed technological progression the Dominion had established. Status report, Xerxes commanded, his translator converting his crystalline resonances into the standard galactic format. First observer Melix's appendages danced across the control interface. The target system contains 9 planets orbiting a Class G star, Admiral. We're detecting significant technological activity around the third planet and its satellite. Primitive defenses. Unclear, sir. Our sensors are. Melix paused, his compound eyes flickering in confusion. Sir, our sensors are having difficulty obtaining clear readings. The energy signatures don't match anything in our database. Xerxes felt a ripple of annoyance course through his crystalline structure. In 10,000 years of expansion, the Dominion had cataloged every possible technological path a civilization could take. Their database contained the energy signatures of every known weapon, shield, and propulsion system in existence. There could be no exceptions. Launch the standard greeting protocol, he ordered. The Dominion had perfected first contact over millennia of expansion. The sight of their massive fleet emerging from quantum space had broken the will of countless civilizations before a single shot was fired. The holographic projectors activated, creating a galaxy-spanning image of the Dominion's might above the third planet. Xerxes began the traditional speech, his voice echoing across space. Inhabitants of this system, behold the might of the Eternal Dominion. For 10,000 years, we have guided the galaxy's evolution. Submit to our authority, and you shall be elevated. Resist, and you shall be. Oh, hey there. One sec, let me put my coffee down. The casual interruption sent a wave of confusion through the bridge crew. The voice had come through their most secure communication channel, bypassing encryption that had never been breached in the Dominion's history. A holographic window appeared before them, showing a human female in what appeared to be casual attire, sitting in a chair that hovered slightly above the ground. She was sipping from a steaming cup decorated with the words, "World's okayest space captain." "Sorry about that," she continued, grinning. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. Though honestly, that's just my official title. We're pretty casual about these things. Nice light show, by the way. The galactic hologram thing. Very dramatic. Our entertainment division is already making memes about it." Xerxes' crystalline form vibrated with indignation. "You dare mock the Eternal Dominion. Our fleet has the power to reduce your world to ash." "About that," Captain Chen replied, taking another sip of her coffee. "You might want to check your tactical displays. Just a friendly suggestion." First observer Melix chittered in alarm. "Admiral, I'm detecting. I don't understand. There are human vessels throughout our formation. They weren't there a moment ago. Our sensors didn't detect any movement. Indeed, scattered throughout the Dominion fleet were dozens of small human ships, their designs varying wildly from sleek arrows to what appeared to be rotating cubes that shouldn't have been able to function in space. One vessel was shaped like what humans called a rubber duck, complete with a yellow exterior. "Don't mind our patrol ships," Chen said cheerfully. "They just wanted a closer look. We don't get many visitors out here, especially ones with such fancy ships. Though I have to ask, what's with all the spikes? They seem rather impractical for space travel." Before Xerxes could respond, another human vessel materialized directly in front of the Eternal Glory. It was a perfect sphere, its surface rippling like liquid metal. Text scrolled across its surface in various alien languages. "HONK, if you love peace, you cannot have this technology," Xerxes declared, his logical circuits struggling to process what he was seeing. "We have guided all civilizations along the proper path of development. Your advancement is unauthorized." Captain Chen's laughter echoed through the command channel. "Unauthorized advancement. Oh, that's a good one. Hold on, let me add that to our collection." She typed something on a holographic keyboard. "And saved. That's going right next to resistance is impolite in our Things Empires Say database." "Admiral," Melix reported, his voice trembling. "The human vessels, they're not using any known form of propulsion. They're not generating any recognizable energy signatures. They're just moving. And sir, that sphere ship, it's somehow simultaneously occupying the same space as 3 of our destroyers, but there's no collision." Xerxes felt something he hadn't experienced in his 300 years of service: uncertainty. Everything about these humans defied the natural laws the Dominion had built their civilization upon. Their ships ignored physics, their communications broke unbreakable codes, and worst of all, they showed no fear. "Let me be clear," he said, trying to regain control of the situation. "The Dominion does not tolerate deviation from the established order. You will submit to our authority and allow us to guide your species along the proper path of development. Or—" "Oh, speaking of development," Chen interrupted, pressing something on her chair's armrest. "We just finished analyzing your quantum drive technology. Interesting approach, but a bit power-hungry, don't you think? We took the liberty of making some improvements. You should be receiving the upgrade now." Suddenly, every display on the Eternal Glory lit up with new information. Diagrams, equations, and technical specifications flooded the systems. Improvements to their most advanced technology that even their best scientists hadn't conceived of. "We also threw in some suggestions for your life support systems," Chen continued. "Those crystal formations you use for bodies. Beautiful, but they must be a pain to maintain in space. We noticed some microfractures in your lower segments. Admiral, might want to get those checked out." Xerxes stared at the human captain, his perfect worldview cracking like his crystalline form. What are you?" Chen's smile softened. "We're human. We're explorers, inventors, and honestly, huge fans of meeting new people. Even ones who show up with big fleets and dramatic speeches. Speaking of which," she pressed another button, and a new holographic window appeared, showing what appeared to be a ranking system. "Your invasion threat has been officially rated by our First Contact Review Board. You scored highly on presentation. Love the crystalline aesthetic, by the way, but lost points for predictability. Don't worry, though. We're happy to help you workshop some new material." The bridge of the Eternal Glory fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans weren't just refusing to submit to the Dominion. They were treating one of the galaxy's most powerful military forces like an amateur performance in need of improvement. First Observer Melix finally broke the silence. "Sir, what are our orders?" Xerxes stared at the human captain, who was now showing him something called a cat video, while explaining how these small Earth creatures had once been worshipped as gods. In 10,000 years of expansion, the Dominion had never encountered anything like this. Their perfect system of technological progression, their understood laws of physics, their very understanding of how civilizations should develop. All of it was being casually appended by a species that treated First Contact like a social gathering. "Captain Chen," he said finally, his voice carrying a new tone, respect tinged with fascination. Perhaps we should discuss this further." "Now you're talking." Chen beamed. "We're having a barbecue next week. Earth food, you'll love it. Well, you might not be able to eat it with your crystal biology, but the cultural exchange will be fantastic. Oh, and bring your engineering team. Our quantum mechanics department has some theories they'd love to run by them. Fair warning, though. Our theoretical physics tends to make most species' heads hurt. Metaphorically speaking, in your case." As the human captain began enthusiastically planning what she called a proper first contact party, Xerxes realized that the galaxy was about to change in ways the Eternal Dominion had never imagined. And somehow, against everything he had ever known or believed, he was looking forward to it. The Art of Chaos. Supreme Commander Ixal of the Dominion War Council had never seen the chamber of strategic contemplation in such disarray. The normally pristine crystalline chamber, designed to channel thought resonances for perfect strategic clarity, was cluttered with holographic displays showing countless human vessels performing what his analysts insisted on calling impossible maneuvers. "Explain to me," he commanded, his crystalline form vibrating with barely contained frustration, "how a species that drinks stimulant-laced beverages for pleasure has completely undermined our military doctrine." Strategic analyst Venna, her violet crystal structure dulled from overwork, manipulated the central hologram. "Sir, the humans appear to be operating on what they call rule of cool principles. When our fleet commanders deploy according to 10,000 years of tactical doctrine, the humans—" She paused, checking her terminology. "They do whatever feels awesome at the moment." The hologram showed a recent engagement. The Dominion battle group had positioned itself in the theoretically perfect hexagonal assault formation, only to be completely disrupted by a human vessel that transformed itself into what the humans called a giant space surfboard and rode the wake of a nearby pulsar. "That shouldn't be possible," Ixal stated for what felt like the 1,000th time. "The humans agree, sir," Venna replied. "They've taken to leaving sticky notes on our ships explaining why their maneuvers shouldn't work. Our physics division is having a collective breakdown." Another hologram activated, showing a human ship designated as US. "Did you see that?" The vessel had somehow tied itself into a literal knot to avoid Dominion targeting systems, while its crew hosted what they called a space party, complete with something called disco lights radiating from their hull. "The worst part," Venna continued, "is their effect on our younger crew members. After witnessing human ships performing what they called drift racing through asteroid fields, several of our patrol vessels attempted to—" She consulted her notes— "add racing strides to increase their speed." Ixal's crystalline form shuddered. "Surely our elite forces have maintained their discipline." "About that, sir." Venna brought up another display. "The 7th Precision Fleet, our most disciplined unit, encountered a human diplomatic vessel last week. The humans challenged them to something called a dance-off to settle a minor territorial dispute. The entire fleet is now requesting rhythm training." The Supreme Commander stared at the tactical displays, watching as human ships continued to defy every known law of physics, strategy, and common sense. One vessel was currently playing what humans called jump rope with a quantum filament, an act that should have torn the ship apart. Instead, the crew was broadcasting something called a sick beat across all frequencies. "What do our predictive algorithms say?" Ixal asked, hoping for at least some semblance of logical analysis. Venna's crystal structure dimmed further. "They've stopped working, sir. The quantum computers are displaying what humans call error 404, logic not found. One of them has started demanding coffee breaks." A new alert flashed across the chamber's walls. A human vessel had appeared in the heart of Dominion space, seemingly by accident. Its captain was apologetically explaining that they had been testing a new drive system and had somehow ended up reversing the polarity of the entire sector's gravity well. "Oh," the human captain added cheerfully, "while we're here, would you like to join our intergalactic social media network? We're calling it Spacebook. Your crystal technology would make for amazing selfies." Ixal watched as several nearby Dominion ships immediately began transmitting application requests. Discipline was crumbling across the fleet as humanity's chaotic influence spread. Their weapons were formidable not because they were powerful, but because they operated on principles that the Dominion's perfectly ordered minds couldn't comprehend. "Sir," Venna reported, "the humans have started offering what they call physics workshop sessions to our science division. They're teaching our researchers something called thinking outside the box, though they keep giggling every time they say it to our cubic crystal bodies." A transmission cut through their secure channels, another feat that shouldn't have been possible. It was Captain Sarah Chen, the human who had first contacted their fleet. She was lounging in her gravity-defying chair, now decorated with glowing stickers. "Hey there," she waved. "Just wanted to check how you're enjoying our little cultural exchange. By the way, we noticed your ships have been trying to replicate some of our maneuvers. Cute. We've prepared some beginner-friendly tutorials. We're calling it physics. Guidelines rather than rules. A beginner's guide to making the universe question its life choices." Ixel watched as his supposedly elite forces eagerly began downloading the tutorials. The perfect order of the Dominion military was being replaced by what humans called vibes and winging it. "Commander," Venna said softly, her crystal structure showing signs of what humans would call excitement. "I've been analyzing their tactical approach. It's not that they don't have a strategy. It's that their strategy is to have no strategy. They'd weaponized unpredictability itself." The chamber's displays showed more human ships arriving, each performing maneuvers that increasingly ignored the laws of physics. One vessel had transformed itself into a giant holographic cat, batting playfully at a Dominion dreadnought. Another was conducting what they called a space orchestra, using quantum fluctuations to create music that somehow made perfect sense, despite breaking every rule of acoustics. "Perhaps," Ixel said slowly, his rigid tactical mind beginning to bend in new directions, "we should consider adapting our approach." "Sir," Venna's crystal structure brightened with interest. "If we cannot defeat their chaos, perhaps we should learn from it." The words felt strange coming from a being made of perfect crystalline order, but somehow right. "Contact Captain Chen. Tell her the Dominion War Council would like to schedule what do they call it? A brainstorming session." "Sir." "Yes, that." "And Venna." "Sir." "Ask her to bring more of that coffee. I believe we're going to need it." As the chamber of strategic contemplation filled with increasingly chaotic tactical displays, Ixel realized that the Dominion's greatest challenge wasn't facing human weapons or technology. It was facing the possibility that everything they knew about order, strategy, and the fundamental laws of the universe might just be, as humans would say, more like guidelines, really. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, human ships continued their impossible maneuvers, spreading chaos, coffee, and what they called good vibes across the galaxy, one physics-defying dance move at a time. Cultural shock and awe. The Grand Hall of Cultural Preservation, a vast crystalline structure that had documented galactic civilizations for millennia, was experiencing what humans would call a total meltdown. Chief Curator Nixa frantically moved between holographic displays, her usually pristine crystal form showing stress fractures as she tried to process the latest cultural reports from across Dominion space. "This cannot be happening," she muttered, watching as another centuries-old tradition crumbled in real time. The solemn ceremony of light refraction, a cornerstone of Dominion society, had been interrupted when someone introduced what humans called disco balls into the proceedings. The resulting light show had been so spectacular that the attending crystalline dignitaries immediately demanded to make it a permanent addition. Chief Curator, her assistant, Zelix, rushed in, his young crystal structure practically vibrating with excitement. "You need to see this. The humans have introduced something called Casual Fridays to the Imperial Administrative Court." Nix's worst fears were confirmed as she observed the live feed. The traditionally rigid and formal bureaucrats of the Dominion were attempting to wear what humans called Hawaiian shirts projected over their crystal forms. Some had even added virtual sunglasses to their resonance patterns. "This is a disaster," she declared, though a small part of her crystalline consciousness had to admit the patterns were oddly appealing. "The Dominion has maintained perfect cultural stability for 10,000 years. How can one species cause so much chaos in just a few months?" "Oh, it gets better," Zelix said, pulling up more feeds. "Remember how the humans shared their entertainment archives with us? The battle meditation chambers have been converted into something called movie theaters. They're currently showing something called Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. The philosophical implications have caused 3 quantum computers to request sabbaticals to find themselves. The displays showed more evidence of human cultural contamination spreading across Dominion space. The Quantum Harmonics Orchestra, known for its mathematically perfect compositions, was attempting to incorporate something called jazz. The results were causing temporal distortions, but everyone agreed they had great rhythm. A priority communication interrupted their observations. It was Dr. Elena Martinez, the human cultural attaché assigned to the Dominion Central Embassy. Like most humans, she seemed physically incapable of maintaining a formal demeanor. "Hey there," she waved, her office behind her decorated with what appeared to be posters of both human and Dominion art, mixed together in ways that should have been culturally offensive but somehow worked. "Just checking in on how the cultural exchange is going. By the way, love what you've done with the hall's lighting. Very synthwave." Nixa hadn't authorized any changes to the hall's ancient lighting system, but she noticed now that the traditional crystalline illumination had indeed shifted to a pulsing purple and blue pattern. Even the building itself was adapting to human influences. "Dr. Martinez," Nixa managed to maintain her composure, "do you realize what you're doing to our society? The sacred archives report that 15 different traditional ceremonies have been permanently altered this week alone. The young crystal choir is attempting to perform something called rock opera." "I know, isn't it fantastic?" Elena beamed. "The fusion of crystal resonance with electric guitar is creating entirely new art forms. We're calling it crystal rock, though I have to keep explaining that it's not the same as the crystal healing rocks my aunt collects." Before Nixa could respond, Zelix interrupted with another urgent report. "Chief Curator, the Dominion Fashion Council is in uproar. Someone introduced the concept of mood lighting to the young crystal formations, and now they're all experimenting with voluntary color changes. They're calling it crystal expression." The displays showed crowds of young Dominion citizens projecting rapidly changing color patterns through their crystal forms, creating light shows that would have been considered highly inappropriate just months ago. Some were even attempting to synchronize their changes to human music. "That's not the worst part," Zelix continued, his own crystal structure subtly pulsing with colors he was trying to suppress. "The Council of Supreme Order discovered something humans call memes. They're now communicating entirely through something called reaction images during official proceedings." Elena's face lit up. "Oh, you found the memes. We've been working on a special collection just for crystalline beings. We're calling them mineral moments. They're taking off faster than cat videos did in the 21st century." Nixa watched in horror as another sacred tradition fell. The ceremony of perfect geometry, a cornerstone of Dominion education, had been disrupted by students introducing what humans called abstract art into their crystal formations. The resulting shapes were mathematically chaotic, but undeniably beautiful. "Dr. Martinez," Nixa said carefully, "our society is based on order, precision, and carefully maintained traditions. How do you expect us to maintain stability when your culture encourages everyone to, as you say, just vibe?" Elena's expression softened. "But that's exactly why this fusion is so beautiful. Your order and precision give structure to our chaos, while our creativity helps you break free from limitations you never knew were holding you back. Look around. Your society isn't falling apart, it's evolving." She had a point, Nixa realized reluctantly. The young crystals were showing unprecedented growth patterns, developing new resonances that somehow maintained mathematical harmony while expressing individual creativity. The ancient arts were being preserved but transformed, becoming something both familiar and excitingly new. "Besides," Elena continued, "wait until you see what happens when we introduce your engineers to human dance moves. We're calling it crystal breaking. Though we really need to work on that name. It sounds a bit alarming for your species." As if on cue, a new alert showed a group of Dominion engineers attempting to recreate human dancing through crystal resonance. The resulting light show was causing nearby quantum computers to generate poetry. "Perhaps," Nixa found herself saying, her own crystal structure beginning to shimmer with previously unexplored frequencies. We should document these changes. For historical purposes, of course. That's the spirit. Elena cheered. Oh, and speaking of documentation, we're hosting an event called Open Mic Night at the embassy next week. Any chance you'd like to try your resonance patterns at something called stand-up comedy? As Nexa watched her carefully ordered world transform through human influence, she realized that perhaps perfect stability wasn't the highest form of cultural achievement. Perhaps culture, like the humans themselves, needed to be free to evolve, to change, to sometimes break its own rules in the pursuit of something new and wonderful. Zelix, she said finally, add open mic night to my schedule. And perhaps we should look into these Hawaiian shirts as well, for cultural research purposes, naturally. Of course, Chief Curator, Zelix replied, his crystal structure already pulsing with what could only be described as excitement. Should I add dance lessons to the schedule as well? Throughout the Dominion, perfect order was giving way to creative chaos, and somehow, the galaxy was becoming more vibrant because of it. The humans hadn't just introduced their culture, they had shown the Dominion that culture itself was meant to be a living, growing thing, even if that growth occasionally involved disco balls and quantum memes. The Great Unraveling. The Council of Eternal Order, the supreme governing body of the Dominion, had convened an emergency session. The vast chamber, designed to accommodate the crystalline forms of the galaxy's most powerful rulers, was in unprecedented disorder. Some council members were experimenting with holographic decorations, while others had their assistants frantically trying to remove what humans called googly eyes that had somehow been attached to their crystal faces. High Counselor Tix, the oldest and traditionally most conservative member of the council, observed the chaos with an unexpected sense of fascination. In his 400 years of service, he had never seen anything like the transformation sweeping through their society. The situation has become untenable, announced Counselor Vax, her crystal structure practically vibrating with distress. Our latest reports indicate that 17 previously subjugated species have submitted formal requests to hang out with humanity instead of maintaining their traditional subordinate relationships with the Dominion. The chamber's holographic displays showed the extent of the crisis. The Galactic Empire, once a loyal vassal state, had replaced their traditional military parades with something called flash mobs. The Zentari Collective, renowned for their rigid hierarchy, had implemented a casual business culture after a single trade meeting with human representatives. That's not the worst of it, added Counselor Mira, who had recently begun experimenting with projected patterns on her crystal surface. The humans have introduced something called social media to the galaxy. Our carefully maintained image of supreme authority is being, what's the term? Ah yes, memed into irrelevance. The displays showed a cascade of images spreading across galactic communication networks. Pictures of Dominion warships were being shared with captions like, "When you try to look tough but your ships are basically space diamonds," and "Imperial aesthetic," when you can't decide between being menacing and fabulous. Perhaps most concerning, Mira continued, her own crystal surface betraying a hint of amusement, is the trend of various species starting what humans call reaction channels to review our traditional intimidation speeches. Our latest conquest announcement received, and I quote, 3 out of 10 stars. Good effort, but needs more pizzazz. A priority communication interrupted the proceedings. It was Ambassador James Chen, Sarah Chen's father and Earth's official diplomatic representative. Unlike his daughter's casual approach, he maintained a professional demeanor, though the tropical plant visible in his office background and his coffee mug reading "World's Most Medium Dad" somewhat undermined the effect. Esteemed council members, he began, somehow making the formal address sound friendly rather than deferential. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. We've noticed some concern about recent cultural developments and thought it might be helpful to have a chat. High Counselor Tix felt his crystal structure resonate with both irritation and curiosity. Ambassador Chen, Your species has caused more disruption to galactic order in 6 months than we've seen in 10,000 years. Yes, isn't it wonderful? James smiled. I've been reviewing your historical archives. Fascinating reading, by the way, and I couldn't help but notice a pattern. Your empire has maintained stability by controlling the rate and direction of progress. Yes, but consider this. What if stability isn't the same as stagnation? Before any council member could object to this philosophical heresy, the displays showed new data. Species that had embraced human influence were showing unprecedented advances in technology, art, and social development. The Graxton flash mobs had somehow led to breakthroughs in quantum communications. The Zentary's casual business culture had resulted in a 300% increase in innovation. What you're seeing, James continued, isn't chaos. It's evolution. Every species you've guided along your prescribed path of development had potential they never got to explore. By letting them experiment, fail, and learn in their own way, they're discovering capabilities nobody could have predicted. A new alert flashed across the chamber. The Arconian hierarchy, one of the Dominion's oldest subject races, had just achieved what they called a technological yeet, combining their traditional crystal technology with human-inspired quantum mechanics to create something entirely new. Your species, Counselor Vax observed, seems to take pleasure in dismantling everything we've built. Not dismantling, James corrected gently. Transforming. Look at your own people. Since meeting us, how many young crystals have developed new resonance patterns? How many of your scientists have made breakthroughs by asking what if instead of following established principles? The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The displays showed more evidence of change. Dominion citizens experimenting with new forms of art, technology, and social interaction. Their rigid hierarchy was becoming more flexible, yet somehow their civilization wasn't collapsing. It was flourishing in unexpected ways. Besides, James added with a smile, I thought you might be interested in the latest trend. Some of your younger citizens have started combining traditional crystal harmonics with human music theory. They're calling it crystal jazz. It's becoming quite popular across the galaxy. To demonstrate, he played a recording. The chamber filled with sounds that should have been discordant. Ancient crystal resonances mixed with human rhythms and melodies. Instead, it was hauntingly beautiful, neither purely Dominion nor purely human, but something new and wonderful. High Counselor Tix found his crystal structure resonating with the music despite himself. Ambassador, he said slowly, when your species first appeared in our space, we thought you were a threat to order. Perhaps we were right, but not in the way we imagined. The greatest threat to order, James replied, is the assumption that it must never change. The universe is too vast and wonderful for any one species or empire to have all the answers. Sometimes the best thing we can do is admit we might be wrong, try something new, and see what happens. As if to punctuate his point, another alert showed a group of young Dominion scientists successfully testing a new form of quantum drive. They had apparently achieved the breakthrough during something called a pizza and physics party, a concept that would have been unthinkable months ago. The question before us, Tykes addressed his fellow council members, is not whether we can stop these changes, but whether we should try. Perhaps it is time for the Eternal Dominion to consider becoming less eternal and more evolutionary. Through the displays, they could see their civilization transforming. Crystal beings were learning to dance, ancient traditions were being reinvented, and across the galaxy, species that had once lived in fear of the Dominion were beginning to see them as potential friends rather than conquerors. Well, James said, his expression warm, if you're interested in evolution, Earth is hosting a galactic cultural festival next month. We'd love to have the council attend. Fair warning, though, there will be karaoke. As the Council of Eternal Order contemplated this invitation, their chamber resonating with crystal jazz, they realized that the great unraveling of their empire might actually be the beginning of something far more interesting. The galaxy was changing, and perhaps it was time for the Dominion to change with it, even if that meant learning what karaoke was. Evolution of Empire. 1 year after humanity's first contact with the Dominion, the grand crystalline spires of the imperial capital hosted an event that would have been unthinkable mere months ago, the first Galactic Cultural Exchange Festival. The traditionally austere streets were alive with a riot of colors, sounds, and species from across the galaxy. Grand Admiral Xerxes, who had first encountered humanity's casual defiance of physics and protocol, stood beside Captain Sarah Chen as they watched a parade of impossible ships perform aerial ballet through the crystal canyons of the city. Dominion vessels, their traditional sharp edges now adorned with what humans called mood lighting, danced in formation with ships from 100 different species, each incorporating their own cultural flair into the display. "You know," Sarah said, sipping from a mug that now read "World's Most OK First Contact Captain. When I told you your ships needed more pizzas, I didn't expect you to take it quite this far." Xerxes's crystal structure shimmered with what humans had taught him to recognize as pride. The young crystal formations insisted that if we were going to have a parade, we should, as they put it, go big or go home. I'm still not entirely clear on what that means, but I approve of the results. Above them, a Dominion dreadnought performed a perfect barrel roll while trailing quantum sparkles, a maneuver that would have once been considered both physically impossible and highly undignified. The crowd of mixed species below erupted in cheers, their various appendages waving in appreciation. Speaking of going big, Sarah gestured toward the central planning spire, where the Council of Eternal Order had once micromanaged galactic development. The building had been transformed into what humans called a community center, its crystalline surfaces now displaying a constantly changing array of art from across the galaxy. Inside the spire, High Counselor Tix was hosting a rather unusual session. The traditional chamber of solemn deliberation had been converted into what humans called a maker space, where representatives from different species gathered to share ideas and technologies freely. And you see, Tix was explaining to a group of fascinated alien scientists, by combining traditional crystal resonance with what humans call interpretive dance, we've discovered entirely new ways to manipulate quantum fields. We're calling it quantum choreography. Dr. Elena Martinez, still serving as cultural attaché, couldn't help but smile as she watched a young crystal being demonstrate the technique. Their crystalline form flowed through a series of movements that somehow altered the very fabric of space-time, creating patterns that were both mathematically perfect and artistically beautiful. The best part, Elena remarked to Ambassador James Chen, who was documenting the proceedings, is that they're not just copying human ideas anymore. They're creating something entirely new. Indeed, across the galaxy, the rigid hierarchy of the Dominion had evolved into something unprecedented. The empire that had once enforced perfect order now served as a hub of innovation, where different species could freely share their unique perspectives and abilities. The Galactic Empire's flash mobs had evolved into a new form of mass quantum computing, where synchronized movement generated processing power. The Zentary's casual business approach had led to the development of what they called quantum chill, a state of matter that somehow combined maximum efficiency with minimum stress. You know what the really funny part is? Sarah mused, watching as a group of crystal beings attempted to teach a blob-like species their new dance moves. Everyone thought we were chaos agents, but we just showed them that there's order in chaos, and chaos in order. A massive holographic display activated above the city, showing scenes from across the transformed galaxy. The Arconian hierarchy, once bound by strict protocols, had developed a form of governance they called structured improvisation. The Quantum Harmonics Orchestra now incorporated elements from 1,000 alien musical traditions, creating symphonies that altered the resonance patterns of space itself. Ambassador Chen addressed the gathered crowds, his casual demeanor now a diplomatic style copied by representatives across the galaxy. 1 year ago, the Dominion thought they had to choose between perfect order and total chaos. Today, we celebrate the discovery that the most beautiful things in the universe happen when we learn from each other, when we're not afraid to experiment, to fail, to laugh, and to try again. The displays showed more evidence of this new philosophy in action. The Dominion's once rigid education system had been replaced with what they called quantum learning, a combination of traditional crystal knowledge and human-inspired creativity. Young crystals were encouraged to ask what-if questions that would have once been considered heretical. Even the Dominion military had evolved. The fleet that had once existed to enforce order now served as a rapid response force for scientific discovery and cultural exchange. Their ships, still impressive but no longer intimidating, were painted with what humans called awesome space art, each vessel a unique expression of its crew's creativity. "There's just one thing I don't understand," Xerxes said to Sarah as they watched the celebrations. "How did you know it would work? How did you know we could change without breaking?" Sarah's smile was warm. "Because that's what humans do best. We don't just adapt to the universe. We help the universe adapt to new possibilities. Also," she added with a wink, "we've been practicing on our own bureaucracies for centuries. You'd be amazed what a little chaos can do for a rigid system." As if to demonstrate her point, a group of crystal beings floated past, their forms pulsing with colors as they performed what they called a quantum flash mob, their movements somehow generating both perfect crystal harmonies and what humans called sick beats. The festival continued into the night, the crystal spires of the capital glowing with 1,000 colors. Ships from across the galaxy danced through the stars, each movement a celebration of what could happen when different species learned to combine their strengths rather than enforce their differences. In the heart of the city, where the Council of Eternal Order had once enforced perfect stability, a new monument had been erected. It was a perfect crystal sphere that somehow contained a swirling galaxy of chaos within its ordered structure. The inscription, written in every known language, read, "The universe is not meant to be controlled, but to be explored together." As the celebration reached its peak, someone, no one was quite sure who, started playing crystal jazz. The music spread through the quantum communication networks, reaching every corner of the galaxy. And everywhere it was heard, beings of all species and forms found themselves moving to its rhythm, each in their own way, yet somehow all together. The Eternal Dominion had evolved into something new, not an empire of order, but a symphony of possibility. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, new species were emerging, looking up at the stars and wondering what they might discover there. When they did, they would find not an empire waiting to conquer them, but a galaxy of friends ready to dance with them among the stars.